The lack of public funding for political parties in a manner that creates equal and level playing field for electoral contestation for all political parties is also a manifestation of winner takes all politics. Winner wins, the winner of an election wins power, and then he takes over all resources and ensures that all other political parties suffocate financially to the point that they will not be able to keep themselves, their heads above water. And it's a problem. It's a manifestation of winner takes all politics. Apart from that, it makes our elections a do or die affair, and oftentimes our democracy is threatened, and there's always a threat of democratic relapse. And anytime there is a threat of democratic relapse, anytime the threat of democratic relapse becomes pervasive, it even becomes a disincentive to investors. Investors would want to go to countries whose democracies are consolidated. And so if every now and then there is going to be election and people will have to fight in because he who wins an election would earn or win an ATM machine on his veranda, and so it becomes a do or die battle, then people may not even come to invest in your country. And so the lack of public funding in a manner for political parties, in a manner that creates level playing field for all political parties, is a manifestation of winner takes all politics. The winner wins and then takes all resources and suffocates the opposition financially. Let's take note that in Ghana, for instance, there used to be some amount of state funding for political parties, and here let us draw a line of demarcation between state funding and public funding. By state funding, I'm talking about the state itself doling resources to political parties directly by itself or indirectly through its agencies. That's state funding. When we talk about public funding of political parties, we are talking about the establishment of a fund into which the state itself contributes, and then individuals, donors, corporate or private individuals all contribute, and then somebody is made to administer the fund to political parties. That becomes public fund of political parties. So there is that distinction between state funding of political parties and public fund of political parties. But I'm saying that for many years, 1992 up to 2012, there used to be state funding of political parties. That occurred when the Electoral Commission, the government or the state through the Electoral Commission, was always giving political party leaders some vehicles to enable them go about their campaign. So you remember, those who are old enough to have followed our political history, you would recall that some NEVA vehicles were given to political party leaders, and then also Tata pickups were given to political party leaders to enable them prosecute their campaign. It was a state through the Electoral Commission that distributed this to party leaders. And then also all political parties are given the opportunity to go and outline their vision on the state broadcaster. So the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, that would have charged money, would now in the lead up to elections give the opportunity to all political parties to outline their vision to Ghanaians without paying anything. So these are some of the elements of state funding of political parties, something that we used to do, but I think that for some time now we've stopped. But I'm broadening the argument to include beyond state fund of political parties to talk about public fund of political parties. As I indicated, the state itself must contribute to a fund, and then also individuals can also contribute to that fund, and then that fund is distributed to political parties in a manner that ensures a level playing field. I've also always argued that political parties have enormous role and responsibilities to perform and to discharge. Unfortunately, they focus only on their mandate to present candidates during elections. but parties are supposed to function as agents of interest articulation, agents of interest aggregation, agents of political education. They are supposed to, they are supposed to keep governments and regimes on their toes, performing their watchdog function. They are supposed to, in times of national crisis, undertake research and make their findings known to a ruling government for the purpose of shaping or helping them to tackle the challenge. So they have a lot of roles to perform, especially in between elections or in the inter-election period. Now, but how do they perform these roles? Without money. And so most at times political parties function merely as election machines, because the other functions that they are required to perform in the inter-election period, they are not able to perform. So if they have any money, they save it till election day or election season, and then they want to be doing campaign with those monies. And even what they are able to save is sometimes it's not enough to be able to match ruling parties that control the public purse. And so it makes election a do or die affair, as I indicated earlier, and it creates uneven playing field for all political actors. And it is like I said, a manifestation of winner takes all politics. If we do not want our democratic gains to relapse, then we should be thinking about public funding of political parties to create that even playing field, so that the party that loses election will just accept defeat and go into opposition in peace. This will happen only when the party that gets into opposition still know that regardless of its defeat, it will be able to keep its head above water. Regardless of its defeat, it will be able to pay its utility bills, it can pay its staff, it can undertake retreats, it can initiate capacity building projects for its members, it can embark upon training programs for its members, and then it can prosecute a successful campaign agenda when the time comes for them for it to do so. If people know that in spite of their defeat, they can be able to hold or keep their head above water, then our electioneering campaigning always becoming a do or die battle or affair would reduce. But people feel that if they lose it all. And the ruling government would ensure that it tightens the screw so that no one in the opposition, in fact, sometimes we are told the ruling government go out of its way to even destroy the business of the opposition, so that they don't have the resources to be able to compete effectively with the ruling government in the next election. But public funding of political parties will deal with some of these problems. I know the idea is not so popular among many people in Africa. People feel that why should somebody set up a political party for others to go and also contribute? But the point, contribute to funding. But the point is that if we continue to weaken or perpetuate the weakening of our political parties by starving them of the needed resources, they can only churn out very weak and incompetent leaders who are not so savvy, leaders who are not so smart, leaders who are not that astute. You see, it should be possible for political parties to attract people from all walks of life, particularly from academia. When people are done with school, political parties should be able to attract such people to their fold. And these people will go and work in the party offices elsewhere. People get down with universities and they want to go and work in political party offices. But in many developing countries in Africa, people do not want to work in party offices because the parties cannot pay them. But if you are able to attract the right caliber of people and you pay them, then with time you'll be able to groom them. They are smart, they are intelligent, they are highly educated. You groom them well, and next time you put them out for election, we would elect that person and know that we have elected a seasoned, a well-groomed person who would have every grasp over the issues confronting us and who would help us in tackling our challenges of poverty and underdevelopment. So if we don't fund political parties, they become weakened. And weak political parties would always churn out weak leaders. Weak leaders would always be incompetent and incapable of helping us to fight poverty and underdevelopment. I know that the idea has also been that some members in the ruling government oftentimes see the idea of public funding as a solution or a weapon that is given to their opponents. And so if you bring about public funding of political parties, then you weaponize your opponents to compete or to campaign or to be in a competition with you in the electioneering campaigning process. Well, so ruling parties do not seem to like it. When they get into position, they like it. So a party in power today will say, well, we can't do public fund of political parties. But the moment they get into opposition, they like public fund of political parties. I think this is an important business or national interest matter that we cannot subject to partisan discourse. We must take a decision as a people, and if we think that public fund of political parties is good, just that I believe in, then let's go for that, so that we'll be able to strengthen political parties and we'll be able to douse the divisive flames of winner takes all politics perpetuated by lack of even playing field for political parties in the lead up to elections. And if we do that, I'm sure our democracy will be going places. And so public fund of political parties, or its lack is a manifestation of winner takes all politics. But if you don't want winner takes all politics and this particular problem of lack of funding for political parties to degenerate into something else, then we must seek to create even field and level playing field for all political parties, so that even if one loses election, that party will be able to keep its head above water. Some have also said that public fund of political parties will bring about the proliferation of unnecessary political parties. But the idea of public fund of political parties is not to give a license for over 100 political parties to be established, as the case of Mali suggests. There are stringent requirements that are encapsulated in a draft bill that would make it even difficult for the two main political parties in Ghana to survive if they don't set up. And so the point is, there are so many requirements that you have to meet in order to be able to attract that kind of funding. And so nobody will have it easy. So if anybody thinks that, well, I'm going to set up a political party and go and benefit from public funding, I'm saying that in future, if we decide to go that route, there would always be rules that will tighten the screws to ensure that the mere fact that political parties are being funded will not be licentious for the proliferation of amorphous political groupings that parade themselves as political parties, that in reality they are not, and they deceive all of us. So that is about public fund of political parties as a solution to winner takes all politics. I'll move on to talk about another manifestation in the next lecture. Thank you very much.